straight into a rant? Go on then. Arsenal fans, calm down. Stop panicking. You've got to be in it to win it, guys. 2-2 draw. We're going to talk about the Arsenal game. We're going to talk about a whole host of games. 6, in fact, from the weekend's action, and provide some little tactical tidbits for you guys. If you are new to the channel, we're trying to get ourselves to 250,000 subscribers. So if you do get something from this video, you want to support the channel, hit that subscribe button. But back to my rant. What are we doing here? Now, I get that everyone's going to kind of jump on the sort of bottle job thing. I get it from other fans. But you, and I know this isn't all Arsenal fans, and I know probably the bulk of Arsenal fans that watch this channel probably watch it because they want a bit of calmness. And I'm not always there, and I know this isn't that really either. Fucking calm down. Fucking calm down. Like, you are on the course to make 90 points. You've drawn 2 games. Did you think it was going to be completely plain sailing? No, you might not even get over the line. But you've had a wonderful season. And again, if you got to fly close to the wind, if that's even the phrase, if you want to get yourself a trophy. Okay, you could have had Chelsea's season or Liverpool's season, and you would have been moaning to high heaven going, we deserve to be up there. You're up there. Stop moaning. I know this isn't all Arsenal fans. I just got to get that off my chest. I support a team that's won 2 games in 27 in all competitions. So shut the up. And it's called the ebb and flow of football. Man City could drop points. You could drop more points. You could beat them. Then they could lose to someone else. This is football. Don't collapse now. Christ. And as I said, this could be a valuable lesson. It could actually be a valuable lesson for Arsenal. Let's get into the game. West Ham 2, Arsenal 2. The XG 1.75 to 2.82 for Arsenal. They're away from home. And look, they should have won it. Even Jamie Carragher at one point was talking about, we've got to think about goal difference now because they need to get that up as high as possible. One must beware hubris. Good God. Anyway, despite losing their grip of the game, Arsenal looked unbelievable for the first 20 minutes. And I think that's where the chaos comes from, is the fact that you're 2-0 up in 2 separate games, and now people are going, are we allowed to complain yet? No, you're not allowed to complain yet, is the answer. You're not allowed to complain. You've got a team that plays great football, that's young, that cares. I hear people talking about they ain't got a winning mentality. Shut up as you sit on the sofa shouting that. What are we on about? They're giving absolutely everything. They're playing good football, and there's a reason why they didn't hold it together. And it was this fallibilities, if that's a word as well, that we've all wondered if would reveal themselves. But take a breath, okay? As I said, unbelievable in the first 20 minutes of the match. And it looked like they were going to have that match wrapped up. But I think it's a good thing and it's a bad thing for Arsenal. Obviously, you've dropped points. But firstly, it shows that they were good enough to win the match. You know, the XG is strong as well. They do create enough chances. And in those early stages, West Ham did not have any answers for them at all. But it also tells that Arsenal cannot afford to take their foot off the gas. Yes, it's points dropped for Arsenal, but it's also a huge learning opportunity for what is a very, very young side. The big question when it comes to the team, for me, is did they miss Zinchenko in this one? Now, the reason they played Tierney quite possibly is that had a tough time against Liverpool, and maybe with Jared Bowen, who was pretty awesome in this game. They wanted someone who could deal with him sort of one-on-one that little bit more in Kieran Tierney. But first of all, we talk about winning mentality and game management, which I think is one critique that you can certainly have at Arsenal with these 2 games because they have been 2-0 up in both. He has that winning mentality from his time at Man City, but he also offers so much by the ways of creativity and midfield dominance, which I think is really important here, playing in that inverted role. Tierney had 65 touches against West Ham. Meanwhile, Zinchenko is averaging 81.8. I think his presence when in possession could have been really useful, especially when working for that 3rd goal at the time when it really mattered. And I think not having that dominance from Zinchenko, it affected the team a lot more than people will think. If you look at Jesus' heat map here, I know he always peels out wide to collect the ball, but the distance that he is away from the goal here, that's the problem. this isn't a forwards heat map almost. He got his goal in the 6-yard box and it looked like he was going to give West Ham problems throughout. But after that goal, he flattered to deceive, didn't he? And this made it a lot easier for West Ham to defend their box and make it compact. They also pressed quite high, West Ham, and were worthy of their point. And Jesus didn't have another shot in the entire match. And I think there is a knock-on effect from that inverted role and that confidence, because it allows Xhaka to be higher and allows Gabriel Jesus to not get involved as much as he wanted to in this one. And he ended up dropping deep and got taken off. What I thought West Ham did well was having options high up the pitch and close together. Time and time again, their striker has been isolated or he's failed to make an impact. But in this game, when Antonio made the runs, he had runners with him. And he could combine with them when West Ham broke forward. West Ham had 13 shots from inside the box by doing this and earned the point that they got against the team that's top of the table. Let's not forget that. Being able to find Benrahma and Bowen out wide in advanced positions was also important for West Ham. And it felt more like the West Ham that earned European qualification. Not only did they get the ball in advanced positions out wide, but West Ham were also able to engineer them into positions in the channels. Combined, they had a total of 6 shots. This came from Lucas Paquetá, having the backing to go forward and move from the midfield third into the final third. His quick decision-making when in possession was a big part of allowing West Ham to play an energetic style that transferred possession into shots in a quick time frame. Over to the other team in North London, and Tottenham lost 2-3 to Bournemouth. XG was 2.23 to 1.31. And I'm starting to wonder if Tottenham will ever recover from this when it comes to this season. Bournemouth showed Spurs exactly what Antonio Conte should have done by using this tactic. This is an embarrassment for Spurs, and it holds up a mirror to their failings. And we're going to tell you exactly how they did that in this week's Fallout. Tottenham got embarrassed in this one, but they've been embarrassing themselves all season, in all fairness. In particular, the rigidity of their formation and unwillingness to adapt. It cost them, as Bournemouth showed exactly how you should play a 3 at the back formation. Starting with Bournemouth, the big thing for them was having runners, but also having fluidity in how they did it. This is something we've been talking about for a good few weeks on the Fallout, but this one was slightly switched up, to be honest, and the heat maps are essential in gaining an understanding of that. So you've got the 3-4-2-1 from Bournemouth, and it was not a rigid defensive-minded tactic, but it was in fact a method of having flexibility in attack and being able to expose Spurs' awful defending. We're looking at the front three of Bournemouth, and I want to highlight how diverse the heat maps are in terms of where they were picking up the ball and how they were not limited to a fixed position in a sense. This is hugely important in making the 3 at the back system work. By allowing the front 3 to explore the pitch, it makes it a lot easier to find them in transitions while also dragging the opposition defence around and forcing them into uncomfortable positions. This screenshot shows exactly this. With Tavernier, who switched to left wing back in the second half, having the freedom to move into forward positions and cutting inside, it forces Davinson Sanchez to come into an uncomfortable position. Also, look at Solanke's position here. Him dropping off forces Dyer to press him, which exposes a huge gap in behind, and that results in Solanke's goal. So why is this important for Spurs? Well, look at Spurs' front 3 and their heat maps, and look at how fixed their positions are. While Spurs did accumulate 2.23 XG and 24 shots, the thing holding them back is how predictable it is and how a specific game plan can be designed to stop them, because the opposition always know how they are going to set up. For a team with world-class forwards, and that's what they're relying on this season, they've been pants all year, but they're relying on that quality, and in particular, the quality of Harry Kane throughout the season to get him out of it. But, when you're sort of relying on those world-class forwards and nothing else, and you've got that lack of ingenuity in a tactical sense, it means that they are just being heavily limited. Son, Kulusevski and Kane are all able to pick up positions all over the pitch, but they pick up the ball in the same positions over and over again. It becomes so repetitive and easy to read. Whereas you look at Bournemouth, and who had different ideas and approaches, not just one specific tactic. Having those great runners and the athleticism of those players as well was massive, and players to come on and affect the game as well, Ouattara being one of those. Another problem for Spurs was the incompetency of their defending. It was so bad, and how they coped with the press. There were numerous times where Spurs were found out due to Bournemouth's high press, and this was because the options in front of Spurs' defence were so predictable, it made it obvious where the pass was going to go and therefore easier to defend. The end result of this was that Bournemouth had a good idea of who the press triggers were and when to initiate them. Huge question for Spurs fans here. Is there a way back for Spurs? Does this loss and the way that they lost just show how far off Spurs are when it comes to the Champions League places? Or is it a lack of tactical intelligence? let me know. Right, we're talking about Aston Villa. Here we go. And by the way, there will be a full video on Aston Villa, and the curse cannot be stuck on me because I said Bournemouth were going to do well, and they are currently doing well. Okay? So, curses are broken now. Catherine, who you all should know, she is the queen of my community and the head lady of the Discord server. If you want to get involved in the Discord server, I'll put a link in the description this week. But we'll do a video on Aston Villa, and I've got, hopefully, some good news when it comes to Aston Villa as well for Villa fans. So make sure you watch that one. So make sure you've subscribed as well. Anyway, Aston Villa 3, Newcastle 0. 1.93 to 0.52 for Newcastle. And Villa are now undefeated in their last 8 and have won 7 of those. Their win over Newcastle may be their best performance of the season so far. This game was the peak example of why Unai Emery is a fantastic manager and why his tactical approach is one of the most effective in the league. The game changer in this match was, of course, Ollie Watkins and Newcastle's uncharacteristic inability to cope with him. It meant that Villa ran riot. Before we get into Ollie Watkins and how good he was, it's important that we look at Newcastle and why they couldn't cope with him. So here we have not 1, not 2, but 3 examples of how Watkins was able to expose a big weakness in Newcastle's defence. There's a clear theme here, and it was targeting the inside channel between Trippier and Schär. This was genius from Emery because Trippier is Newcastle's most important attacking threat, which means he does leave space in behind. And by consistently targeting him, it not only caused problems for Newcastle's defence, but also it limited how effective they were going forward. Trippier didn't create a single big chance in this one, which is impressive from Villa considering he's created 19 so far this season. And from an attacking perspective, it was the perfect storm. Now, I know you're getting annoyed, aren't you? Because for those of you who know, the perfect storm means a bad thing. But I mean, like, the perfect positive storm. Because the idea of exposing Newcastle's right side is all well and good, but you have to have the players to do it. And usually a side would look to do this by using the pace of a winger. But because they have Watkins, a striker who actually started off as a left winger, it meant that they could expose Newcastle without having to overcommit. He's a really unique, complete striker. Normally you have that complete striker's a bit more thick. He's a bit more of a bully, and with that little bit of pace as well. But Ollie Watkins, he's quite, he's very sleek. He's an advanced forward, but he's also able to sort of drop back and get on the ball as well if needs be, or pull out wide. It's something that we don't really see that often, especially with someone scoring the goals that he is. Let's break down Ollie Watkins' game, shall we? Because it was very, very good. 2 goals, 1 assist, 4 shots on target, 0.95 expected goals, so completely outdoing that. 2 key passes as well. So is there a worry for Newcastle now? They're still in the top 4, but have got the likes of Brighton and now Villa breathing down their necks. And does the success that Ollie Watkins had against them make it more difficult for Trippier to be as effective going forwards? Newcastle have Spurs next, and despite Spurs not being up to it this season, Son is in decent form lately and could play a similar role. Something to keep an eye out in that next game. Chelsea 1, Brighton 2. The XG for Chelsea 0.54 at home. The XG for Brighton 2.94. Wow. Has Lampard now officially lost any chance he had of becoming the Chelsea boss on a permanent basis after just 3 games in charge? The answer, for me, yes. Did he really have a chance before that? Probably not. It had to be something really, really special, and it certainly hasn't been. They did score a goal from a huge deflection, but this game showed the tactical disparity between both teams and how much work Chelsea have to do if they are to get back into the top 6, let alone the top 4. And also, it was another great example that you're not special if you get pumped by Brighton. I have said that throughout the season, and they've done it to so many teams this year. They are wonderful. And if you get slapped up by them, just take your medicine. But let's begin with Chelsea. They looked more concerned with stopping Brighton than they were with winning the match. The problem that this caused was that they weren't able to get the best out of who's probably their best player in Enzo Fernandez. With Zakaria and Gallagher next to him in midfield, it meant that Enzo was the only real technical player of the 3. This made it easy for Brighton to focus on him in possession and nullify his effect on the match. We did the fallout after the Real Madrid game, and actually the passing networks in that game showed you that it was just get the ball to Enzo Fernandez and see what he can do. This game is so different. Again, if we show you the passing networks, he barely got on the ball. And by the 57th minute, he'd only had 33 touches and made 18 successful passes. That's so stark than a game away from home at Real Madrid. Again, showing how good this Brighton side are. Now, I understand he only played 2/3 of the match, but he's been averaging 94 touches and 69.3 passes per 90 since signing for Chelsea. So, without Kovacic next to him, it meant that all the ball progression was left to him, but he wasn't able to do it against an energetic Brighton side. It just didn't work at all. Brighton, on the other hand, were their usual brilliant selves, and the stats portray this. The stats are incredible here. Brighton took a total of 26 shots, 10 on target, which shows their dominance in the match. They hit the woodwork a few times, created a high XG, and ultimately flowed through the match. But I want to focus on one player in particular, Julio Enciso. We may be seeing the start of greatness here from the Paraguayan. We said that about Matoma at the start of the season, and the way that Brighton are able to recruit, you just wouldn't put it past him. I mean, the goal, look, his tenacity, balance, and agility make him very, very easy on the eye. And not to mention this screamer that he scores to win the match. But if you haven't seen his goal against Bournemouth, it's well worth a watch. He plays as if the game is in slow motion to him, and everything looks easy for him. The most exciting part about him, for me, it's his intelligence when it comes to his positioning and where he receives the ball. His heat map against Chelsea for me is excellent because he posed a consistent threat in and around zone 14, and that's not through chance. He only played 28 minutes, but in that time he took a total of 4 shots and made a total of 5 successful dribbles. That's insane. Oh yeah, he's only 19 too. Next season, he has serious potential, and he's the next cash cow for Brighton. If they want to sell him, because this lot can get in the Champions League. I'm going to be doing a top 4 video as well, and they are definitely in that video. They are definitely in that conversation. Make sure you don't miss that one. I'll probably get it wrong, but it'll be good fun. Speaking of prediction videos, I did one on the relegation battle, and look, I went specific. And to provide variance, I went, look, Fulham are going to be on the beach, and they will provide 3 points to every team that plays, and they have got a good run between now and the end of the season. And I got that wrong, straight up. But I'm sticking with my relegation places in my bottom 3, so go and have a look at that if you haven't checked that out as of yet. But Everton got pumped in this one. 3-1 to Fulham. The XG for Everton in this one, 1.40. The XG for Fulham, 1.82. And Everton blew their chance here to beat a Fulham side who were 5 matches without a single point. So what went wrong for Everton? Well, firstly, the absences of Doucouré and Onana were felt massively in this one, as it took a lot of energy away from the midfield, but also a lot of physicality and the ability to protect the back 4. And the back 4 was a big problem for Everton. Tracking runners and winning the second balls was the downfall for Everton for the opening goal, but it happened time and again. This shot from Harry Wilson is where the first goal came from. With no Doucouré or Onana, it meant that Tarkowski often had to step up out of the defensive line, and that created gaps. While still on Everton, the lack of quality they displayed going forwards is also a massive worry, and has been throughout and will continue to be. I think that's just something that Everton fans are going to have to deal with, and hope that games are tight, and they're going to lose a few where it's just going to be pretty drab, but hopefully get enough points to get over the line. That's what I'm sort of sticking with when it comes to Everton right now. There were numerous times where Garner or Iwobi had the ball in a central area and they just couldn't find anything on. The lack of movement from the Everton forwards it's just really worrying. And what is even more worrying was the cowardly fouls they kept committing as a team. There was numerous occasions where the Everton players would make pointless fouls when Everton were on top, and it played into Fulham's hands. The lack of quality may be the thing that sends Everton down this season. I mean, this miss from Maupay at 1-1 almost decided the match, as Fulham were there to be got at, but they were let off the hook massively by Everton. And the fear is that Goodison could get really toxic really soon, because it was back in full swing from the reports that I've seen. I thought Fulham's approach worked really well. We haven't given them their flowers, and it wasn't a disrespectful thing. I think it was just the fact that, they are totally safe. They have had a wonderful season and should be so proud of the team that they've got there. They've had a really fun season as well. And they were really good at nullifying Everton's system. Harrison Reed scored the opener. His positioning and movement worked well in overloading the midfield. I think he's been one of the players of the season, because in terms of the expectations of what you would expect from him, I don't think anyone thought he was going to do much this year. I thought he might, you'd need someone else, but he's been absolutely brilliant in the Premier League. He's become a Premier League player. And Reed often moved into the half spaces to receive the ball, and Everton had no answers for it. He made a total of 3 key passes in the 85 minutes he played, and he proved a consistent threat. Again, something we weren't expecting from Harrison Reed. He may be one of the most underrated players in the league, as I've said. His tactical adaptability is excellent, and he complements Palhinha excellently as well. Overloading the wings with Dan James operating as a false 9 was also really effective for Fulham. His combination work with Harry Wilson and Willian meant that all three came away with goal contributions. Southampton 0, Palace 2, 0.78 to 0.87 this game, and what it shows for Southampton has to be a huge worry. They had dominance in the first half as well as a good spell in the second half, but couldn't make the most of it. That's been the problem all season. Southampton had 56% possession as well as 11 shots, 4 on target, whilst Palace only had 10 and 2 on target. The result, the stats and the momentum bar all demonstrate that Southampton are generally just that little bit soft and lack the mettle to stay up potentially, certainly in my opinion. And not only did they not take their chances whilst they had dominance, but they also conceded 2 soft goals that were really avoidable, I think. The momentum bar shows that the only time Palace had any sort of dominance, they scored. And Southampton not playing with a striker was a strange decision for me. I know Onuachu hasn't scored yet for Saints, but he can be very useful when Southampton have spells of dominance and obviously provides an aerial threat that they don't have otherwise. Kamaldeen Sulemana played furthest forward for Southampton and has played as a striker in the past before joining Southampton, but has arguably done his best work for Southampton either out wide or as a second striker. So for him to essentially be operating as the lone striker or a false 9 at times, it just felt like a strange decision. And with Joe Aribo, Sulemana, Walcott and Alcaraz all in the side, it felt like Ruben Selles was trying to force players into the team rather than have an effective game plan. For Palace, they continue to flourish under Roy. The confidence of the Palace side, more specifically Jordan Ayew. And if you are a Palace fan and you haven't heard me talk about my slip up in terms of my tweet on him, go check out the ripple effect from last week. Right at the start of it, I talk about that tweet and how Ayew has been amazing since. But also my boy Eze, in this game, it was just so evident that they won the game and those two were brilliant. Eze, in form, has to go down as one of the most beautiful and dangerous players in the league. The license that Roy has given him to operate freely in the centre with the team almost built around him seems to be working absolutely brilliantly. And with the freedom to operate in either half space, we are seeing him pick up dangerous pockets of play, which is allowing him to get on the ball and be confident in possession. Eze had 57 touches, made 4 successful dribbles and won a total of 10 of his 17 duels. What's the ceiling for this guy? I think this guy is showing that he is truly capable of playing for England. Will he be a regular? Can he be a regular in a squad? I think he'd probably have to move clubs for that. But for the foreseeable future, play for the love of God, play him as a 10. Let us enjoy that for a season. And let us have a proper number 10 playing in the Premier League, because it's an absolute joy. And I've missed seeing him play that way. Just to say, every single one of you that likes the videos every single time, thank you so much. It means the world and it helps the video. For those of you who haven't subscribed, please do consider, and why not check out this video. In this video, we're going to tell you exactly how Liverpool will dominate for years to come. The signs that Liverpool need to make changes are now more prevalent than ever. Trying to curb the effects of their age has been something Liverpool have definitely tried to do in the signings of Hakpo, Nunez and Diaz. But a new problem has occurred, and that is the midfield area and what Liverpool do after Virgil van Dijk.